Hey there folks, how's it going? It's Not So Livid, and welcome back to what I guess is going to become an annual video of sorts. I believe yesterday is when the Spotify Wrapped for 2022 dropped. I have not looked at mine yet. I saw my friends, I think they were talking about it. I don't know, they might have been. I kind of missed that conversation. But regardless, it's out. I see it. I see it in front of me right here. So it exists. And just like we did last year, where I watched it for the first time, I'm gonna do that again. And we're gonna sort of judge my questionable music tastes. I'm assuming it's gonna be set up similarly to last year. It's like, they set it up like an Instagram story where it's just like panels of sorts. Each panel goes through in like 4 seconds, so you have like negative amount of time to process any of what's happening on it. So we'll watch through it and then I'll sort of go through slowly and talk about things that I think are worth talking about, if there are any things worth talking about. But you know what could be fun? Let's do some predictions. What do I predict are going to be some of my top things? Artist is going to be Paramore. I have no doubt in my mind that it will be Paramore. Probably gonna have a Paramore song also in my top 5. I don't know if it'll be my top song. I don't think it will be, actually. Honestly, Grimes is probably gonna make it into my top 5 artists. Ooh, here's a good question. Is The Used still gonna be in my top 5? I think they still will be. They're not going to be number 1. I don't know if they'll even be like 2 or 3. I think they'll still make top 5 though. They might like be 5, but I think they'll still make the podium, the weird podium that has 5 things on it. I don't know what kind of podium that is, but they should make it. And they deserve to make it. Last year they were my number 1. That's 100% not happening. I guarantee that's not happening. I don't know what my top songs are going to be. Weird. I think my top songs are going to be very weird because this year it started happening. I didn't do this as much in the past, but this year I started like fixating on songs for like week-long periods where I would just listen to that song on loop. So I'm pretty sure my top 5 is going to be a mess. What would be my number 1 though? I looped a few Paramore songs, I looped a few Grimes songs, I looped a few random songs too. So it could just be some random song from like a Discover Weekly, because there was a lot of that happening. What other things do they show? Podcasts. I listen to like a decent amount of podcasts, actually. Well, not like in number, in quantity. As far as podcast episodes, I listen to a lot of podcasts, not a wide swath. And it was just one until like August or September when I saw a podcast show up in just my main Spotify page, whatever you call that, your Spotify homepage. And I was like, this looks interesting. It's about gaming, and I like gaming, so I checked it out, and it's very good. It's probably going to be my top 1. My top 1 from last year is probably going to be second, and I don't think there's going to be anything else after that, because I don't think I listen to any other podcasts on Spotify. But that's enough rambling and prediction making. Let's jump into my Spotify Wrapped 2022 and see just how right or wrong I am. Starting with Paramore, no surprises there. Enough about 2022, let's talk about you. Welcome to your Wrapped. Me, thank you. This year, oh my gosh, it's going so fast. 28 different genres. Pop punk, rock, alternative metal, pop, indie pop. Holy cow, why is it so fast? From sunset to what? Goblin core, peppy accomplishment, angst, sad boy hardcore, pumpkin spice, euphoric, ecstatic. Why is it so fast? All that listening added up, 24,653 minutes. Oh my goodness. With one song, love at first listen. It's Flesh Without Blood by Grimes from Art Angel's album. 1,800 songs almost that I listened to. That was in my top 5. Oh my goodness. Why is it? It's faster than last year. This is ridiculous. Why is it so fast? 1,092 artists. My top artist was Paramore. No surprises. I was right. Couldn't stop listening to Pool. Pool's a good song, so that's fair. something about a magazine, and these are my top 5. Paramore, Grimes, The Used, Tiny Little Houses, The Living Tombstone. 4 and 5 are from looping. They shouldn't be on there. 5,800 minutes listening to podcasts. Yeah, those are that. Yep, that's the podcast that showed up. That's the one. Something about an onion. Listening personality. Why is it so fast though? Seriously, the deep diver. Sure, that's accurate, I guess, because that's what I do. Thanks for spending 2022. Yep. Cool. Why so fast? Just like the crow chasing the butterfly. Lost in the summer skies. Thanks for this. Shine down. What a random one to throw in there. Throw in some shine down out of nowhere. Okay. And then it just cuts off abruptly. Holy cow. Why did they go so fast? That was like the supersonic speeds. Why so fast? So like I said, it goes real fast. I couldn't process a lot of what happened. So we're gonna slow it down a bit and go back through things. Take a look. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's go through one by one. My top genres were pop punk, which makes sense because that's Paramore's main genre, and I just like pop punk in general. It should be my top genre. Rock number 2, which is just kind of the generic catch-all for rock, or rock-esque, so fair. Alternative metal, I don't entirely know what alternative metal is. Kind of. It's like almost, I don't know. I'm not even gonna say anything because what I'm gonna say is gonna be stupid and wrong probably. But like I'm not even gonna say anything. Sure, that can be my number 3. Pop at number 4, I don't know. I guess. Sure. Indie pop at number 5 makes more sense than pop at number 4 in my opinion. I think I got a lot of indie pop because of Reece, whether directly or indirectly. I think his listening habits have an indie pop-esque-ness to them to an extent, which has in turn influenced like my listening habits. Like it's influenced my Discover Weekly, I think, where I've been getting more indie pop songs in my Discover Weekly, hence indie pop being on there, and I guess by proxy pop songs as well. But those aren't usually ones I necessarily seek out. They just kind of appear and I'm like, okay, the audio day. I don't know what any of this means, and I don't know if I'm supposed to know what any of this means. It's just, this is like Google search query keywords. They don't mean anything, right? My mornings are Goblin Core Peppy accomplishment. Okay, yeah. What is Goblin Core? What? Do I want to look it up? I'm gonna look it up. Let's Google Goblin Core and see what shows up. Okay, it's a thing. Goblin Core is an aesthetic and subculture inspired by the folklore of goblins, centered on the celebration of natural ecosystems usually considered less beautiful by conventional norms, such as soil, animals, and secondhand objects. What in the world? There's a bunch of shirts up at the top and a questionable miniature statue of a rogue goblin named Meryl. What in the world is this? Why am I Goblin Core? How did I become Goblin Core? What happened? Where did I don't want to say go wrong because because there's nothing inherently wrong with being Goblin Core, but I don't think I am Goblin Core. So what happened? What did I do to become Goblin Core? In the eyes of Spotify. What the heck does this say? Does this say what I think it says? No, it doesn't. Okay. It was written in like weird letters, so I couldn't tell what it said. And given the shirts surrounding it, what I thought it said is not out of the question, I think. I'm not gonna dive deeper into that. My afternoons are angst sad boy with an I hardcore. Okay, and then the nights is just nonsense. Pumpkin spice euphoric ecstatic. It's not even like it looks like it wasn't finished. Like they need another word in here or something. Not that it would mean anything if it was finished. It still wouldn't mean anything. Pumpkin spice euphoric ecstatic. We're gonna move on because this doesn't mean anything. I guess this is the equivalent to what they did last year with like the movie soundtrack, but this is just garbage. That doesn't mean anything, even more so than the movie track. Or maybe it's supposed to be like the audio aura, but then they did the personality thing this year, which I think is like the audio aura that they did last year. And the personality thing is at least like, I think kind of accurate to me. We'll get to that though. We'll get to that. Minutes listened, 24,653, which is more than 77% of other listeners in the United States. That's a lot of minutes. How many minutes are in a year? Oh, duh. 525,600 minutes. Because it's in the song. I should know that. How do you measure a year? So that's like almost 5% of the year listening to music or whatever on Spotify. That's a lot of time. Last year was a lot more though. Last year I think I was like 30,000, which is a crazy number. And 24,000 seems considerably more reasonable in the grand scheme of things. And I mean, it's not like, when you think about the context in which the listening is happening, it's not unreasonable, right? Because it's like, I'll listen to Spotify when I'm walking to a wrestling practice, or when I'm doing like some menial task of some sort that doesn't require any sort of listening itself, so I can listen to whatever else. So I will do that instead. My top song was Flesh Without Blood by Grimes, which, now that I think about it, not surprising at all. I should have seen that one coming. Because I hadn't listened to Grimes really at all until early this year. And I think it actually started, my first time listening to her wasn't one of her songs. It was a song she was featured on that, once again, Reece had recommended to me. Well, I don't actually remember if he like directly recommended the artist. I believe it was like Ashniko. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Ashniko. But I remember Reece definitely like tweeted about it, and he was like, "Hey, stream Ashniko." So I was like, "Who dis? I don't know who this is." So I checked it out, and Grimes featured on one of the songs, which was one of the songs that I liked more than the rest. It wasn't really for me, the album, I would say. But the Grimes song was okay, and I liked Grimes' voice a lot. I really like her voice. So then at some point, a Grimes song popped up in my Discover Weekly. Actually, a different song from Art Angels, which I also really like, Pin, popped up in my Discover Weekly, and I was like, you know, I should give Grimes like a chance here. Because she's 2 for 2. So that's when I did a Grimes deep dive. I went through all her discography, or at least had the intention of doing it, until I got to Art Angels, at which point I first looped Pin for a few days, and then I kept listening to the album, and I got to Flesh Without Blood, at which point I looped Flesh Without Blood for probably a week straight. Hence the 161 total streams, and the date most listened being April 25th, 2022, which is probably the day that I first listened to Flesh Without Blood. And now jumping to current day, I have listened to Grimes' entire discography. I got past Loopville. I don't know if Art Angels is my favorite album. Misanthropocene might be my favorite album from Grimes, but Misanthropocene and Art Angels are my 2 favorite albums Flesh Without Blood is my favorite Grimes song. So it being my top song makes complete sense. Now, as for my top 5 songs, I did say there was going to be a Paramore one in here, which there was. It makes sense. I honestly didn't know which Paramore song it was going to be because there were a few I had those little loop fixations on. Like, I fixated on Interlude from, oh gosh, which album is Interlude from? I want to say it's from their self-titled, right? That's what Interlude's from, I'm pretty sure. I fixated on Pool, obviously. I fixated on 26, which coincidentally is the age I turned this year. There was Fences. Just, I mean, like, I could probably pick any Paramore song, and it had, like, some shot of cracking the lineup. Pool, I think, does make sense in hindsight, though, because I listened to it on loop for a while. And I actually just listened to After Laughter on loop for a while. 3, 4, and 5 are all songs that came from Discover Weeklies. And they're all songs that I ended up liking and looping. Which is why they're in here. Drag Me is, what did it say? Hold on. Drag Me is the angst sad boy. I don't know what I would call What I Want. I don't think it should be in here. Honestly, I don't think What I Want should be in here. Lonely Girl's a good song. I like Lonely Girl. Honestly, like another Grime song would make sense. Delete Forever. Honestly, get rid of What I Want, throw in Delete Forever. I think that's fair. That's a good swap, in my opinion. That's a good swap. Okay, no surprises here. My top artist was Paramore, as I predicted it would be. 2,800 minutes listened, which is like over 10% of all my Spotify listening. And I am in the top 0.1% of Paramore listeners. Not surprising. None of this at all is surprising. There's nothing surprising on this little page. My top 5. 4 and 5 are literally only on there because of those 2 songs. Because Tiny Little Houses is Drag Me, and The Living Tombstone is What I Want. Honestly, they shouldn't be on here. Just like, because I haven't deep dived either of them, so it feels weird to give them the 4 and 5 spots. I think the 4 and 5 spots should go to different artists. Number 1, Paramore, obviously, like I said. 2 as Grimes, I think makes a lot of sense, and I think is actually like true. Grimes went from 0 to silver this year, that's very accurate, I think. They used it number 3, so they still cracked the lineup, and they cracked it enough to podium place. That's reasonable because I don't listen to them as much as I used to, but I do still really like them as a band. Who would my 4 and 5 be if not these 2? We could throw Rise Against in there. Rise Against should probably be in my top 5. Throw them in at number 4. Who would number 5 be then? That's tough. I'm just gonna start scrolling through my artists and see who we can find here. You could maybe put Billie Eilish. I didn't listen to her a lot this year at all, but I do still really like her. I could double dip and put Hayley Williams. That's a possibility. Probably not realistic though. Man, nobody's popping out for me. Maybe like Sick Puppies. Questionable name, but I like their music. So it's fine. You could even throw like Young Bae in there. Those all had like potential for top 5. More so than Tiny Little Houses and Living Tombstone. Nothing against either of them, but I just haven't dived into them enough that I feel they are deserving of these places yet. Maybe after I do dive into them and their discographies, they will be. But as of right now, I don't think this is accurate. top podcast pretty much was as expected and as I predicted. So Remember the Game is the podcast that just showed up on my Spotify homepage one day, and I looked into it and I was like, this is good. It's a good laid back, casual sort of podcast to listen to. Like if you just want to hear people just talking in the background, is very good for that. I was actually just listening to an episode of it earlier today. I was listening to Ocarina of Time and Chilluminati at number 2. Again, that's what I was expecting. I don't know why the official podcast is here. I don't think I've listened to them. Maybe I accidentally did. Because I used to listen, like a few years ago, I used to listen to the official podcast more than I do now. And I don't really listen to them on like Spotify, if I ever listen to them. So I don't know what they're doing here. This should just be like 1, 2, and then an empty third place. But yeah, if you're looking for a podcast, Remember the Game, Chilluminati are my recommendations. They're very good podcasts. Listening personality, The Deep Diver, which I said was fairly accurate, and I do think is accurate because that's kind of how I'm very systematic with how I do everything. Like when I switched over from Google Play Music to Spotify, because Google Play Music no longer exists, I was very systematic in how I created my Spotify library. I went through artist by artist alphabetically, going through their entire discography, adding the songs that I liked to my liked songs, adding the albums I liked to my liked albums, adding the artists I liked to my liked artists, all that stuff, right? So like it's very systematic. Everything's very systematic and organized in a specific way that makes my brain happy. If I've like come across an artist or whatever that I like a song that I heard, this usually happens either through a recommendation or through just a random song in my Discover Weekly, I will be like, okay, I will go through all of your songs now and figure out which ones I like. So the Deep Diver personality is entirely accurate, because this is what I do. This is how I handle Spotify. I'm not always very prompt with these deep dives. Sometimes I just sort of, but I have playlists for that. I'm like, this is an artist that will be deep dived in the future. You go in this playlist. It's like the waiting room playlist, sort of. That's kind of what it functions as. But this is how I approach Spotify, right? I don't know what this FTVU thing is. Like they're trying to do like a 16 personalities type deal here. So whatever. It doesn't mean anything to me. But Deep Diver is accurate. Well, I guess there we have it. That was my Spotify Wrapped for 2022. If you want to share yours, you can feel free to do so down in the comments or on Twitter or whatever. You can just like at me before Twitter gets nuked to Kingdom freaking come, which is inevitable, I think, at this point. Or if you just want to judge my own Spotify Wrapped, you're free to do that as well. But with that, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time with something that isn't this. Goodbye.